What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. Text us 865-658-5824. Joined alongside Jacob in Wisconsin. Jacob, how you doing this morning, brother?
I'm good, man. Just waking up a little bit, knocking the dust off, but I'm good.
Absolutely, man. We got M. Smitty in the house. They got some diesel in hand, ready to talk about the pack. I've already drank 2 cups, so I had to shift it over to the water. You know what I'm saying? I'll be hanging off the ceiling fan here in a second if we ain't careful. So,
A little jittery.
What's that?
Said you're getting a little jittery.
Little jittery, little jitterbug action. Nah, I'm good, man. We had a little date night last night. Went to the movies. Hadn't been to the movies in forever, man. I'm not a big movie guy. I'd rather bore myself to death with documentaries and sports videos. I watch silent all 22 tape 24 hours a day. Mandy tries to make me sit down for 2 hours to watch a movie, and I'm ready to just go off. But we went watch a new Ghostbusters movie, and it was good. A lot of nostalgia in it. It was fun. But yeah, so you know how it is, man. You go to the movies, sit through about hour and 45-minute movie, spend $200 on food and everything, and you're good to go, right? So
Yeah.
here we are.
Did you sneak in treats? Did you sneak in candy?
No, we went the legal route this time.
Rookie
right?
move. Rookie.
Yeah. No, we have actually our first date. It's funny you say that. Our first time we ever went to the movies, me and Mandy. This is way back in 2000. Yeah, this would have been 2000. And we're gonna go to the movies, and we pulled into Harlan, Kentucky. And she said, "Hey, swing over here to McDonald's real quick." And I was like, "We're going to the movies. We're gonna have popcorn and stuff." Dude, she went through the drive-thru and loaded down the hamburgers, stuffed them in her purse. I was like, "This girl's a keeper." Yeah, this girl is a keeper right here. So, yeah. So anyway, it's good. If you guys get a chance, it's a pretty good movie. They did all right. I don't think it's gotten great reviews, but when it comes to reviewing movies, too, Jacob, I've never seen a bad movie because I'm not a big movie person. I'm like, I can respect it for what it is, you know. But some people are heavy movie critics, and you know they're like, "Well, I didn't like the ending. I didn't like how they set up the plot." I'm going, I just wanted
one question, and then we'll get into sports for the people that don't care about movies. Have you seen the new Roadhouse yet?
I have not yet. No.
I think it's available on Prime. I think you
Is it really?
I think so. I was gonna rent it today, maybe.
Yeah, it looked a little cringe, but I'm telling you, the original was cringe too. At the time, it wasn't, but in 2024, probably gonna feel a little cringe. But I'm a big Conor McGregor guy too, so seeing him come up in UFC, I'm a big fight fan, so I think it'll be good. It'll be one of those movies I go, yeah, it's a good movie, and most people will probably say it sucks. So that's usually how I critique movies. But yeah. Anyway, appreciate everybody hanging out with us in here. We got a bunch of folks. We got United Bates said first, got in here early. Actually, it looked like he got in here last night when the stream was created, which is hilarious. Donald Krieger in the house. Let's see. We got Greg. We got Jay. We got M. Smitty. We got David Mitchell. Ron Samble. Good to see everybody. Good to see everybody this morning. So what I thought we would do, Tim's off today and tonight. We're going to go live. I may go live 3 times today. Okay, so obviously doing this one, we're going to do a PTA live. If I got time midday, I may come up with another one too, because there's just a lot of information I want to dive into and kind of get ready for this Jeff Hafley defense and just kind of be prepared as the season inches closer. We don't want to turn into the show where we're just randomly talking about nonsense, right? I feel like the dead time, Jacob, is a good time to kind of dive in and learn something about the team, learn something about football, the X's and O's, whatever. No wasted moments, right? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to kind of talk about the Jeff Hafley defense and what we all kind of projected to possibly be. No one truly knows. Guys, he could come out, and they've been talking 4-3-4-3. He could come out and run a 34 hybrid. You know, we don't know. But I think that the best way to try to get an early grab on what Jeff Hafley's defense may or may not be is to look at where he spent time in the NFL, watch his recent interviews and his take on defenses, which he's done. He goes really, really in depth whenever he talks defense, right? You know, he talked about my friends in the NFL, and you immediately go, all right, time out. Who are his friends in the NFL? His friends in the NFL are from the old San Francisco 49ers defense, right? Now, who are those? Your Robert Salas. You know, DeMeco Ryans, I believe, played at that time. So DeMeco Ryans probably got a similar mindset. So you can kind of comb through those style of defenses. Essentially, what you've got is 3 defenses in the league that I think is is at least our best chance of trying to figure out what's Jeff Hafley's defense going to look like in this new 43 scheme. That's New York Jets, San Francisco 49ers, because Kyle Shanahan's still approaching it the same way. And, of course, D'Amico Ryans in Houston. I keyed in on the New York Jets and the San Francisco 49ers. And specifically, the goal of this exercise was to come away and go, okay, what do their linebackers look like? You've seen Matt LaFleur last year absolutely roast the media, right? And really some fans were encompassed in that too. When he was talking about, is it the fact you're only playing with 2 down linemen? And he just kind of laughed at him and said, you do understand that our outside linebackers are built like defensive ends, right? They're what we refer to as edge defenders. So a term that gets thrown around a lot today is the Sam backer. And immediately, if you were to ask 5 people, what's a Sam backer? They would have 5 different definitions, right? Honestly, they would. Because when the Sam backer was more prevalent, like back in the 90s, it was a guy that's going to be kind of that hybrid to play on the defensive line. So as I'm watching tape, over the last few years, and I hear Sam backer, I'm constantly thinking like, I'm not seeing on tape how people are describing Sam backers. I'm seeing more stack backers. And when we're talking about stack backers in a 4-3, they're the 3 linebackers who are on their feet, right, behind the defensive line, behind the 4 linemen, and they're stacked behind the defensive line. That's why they're referred to as stack backers. If someone was playing a true Sam, then they would be on the strong side of the formation on the line of scrimmage. So like when you go to the PFF information and it shows you where players line up, you don't see Sam. Occasionally you'll see LOLB or ROLB, right? And, that would technically be the Sam if it's on the strong side of the formation. So you're not going to hear Sam referred to as much in today's game in the NFL. So with that being said, let's just kind of dive into it. Jacob, did that trigger any thoughts before we get into the information? Do you have a question, comment, anything like that?
No, I mean, is it stupid that when I was playing and grew up, Sam just to us meant strong and Will was weak side linebacker? You know what I mean? That was basically the dumbed down version. But
correct. Yeah. So Prince says, Sam Backer, that dude owes me $20. Exactly correct. No, yeah. So that's the thing. Sam, Mike, and Will, it simply stands for your Mike is your middle linebacker. All right. This is going to blow you guys away, but middle linebacker means he's in the middle. All right. So Sam is for strong side linebacker, and they'll throw Sam out there just as a quick 1-syllable Sam, right? Will is weak side linebacker. So the strong side of the formation, right? The linebacker that lines up on the strong side of the formation is technically your Sam. But you'll notice PFF doesn't refer to him as Sam because they're playing stack backer. In some cases, they'll refer to him as a Will or even a portion of the Mike. I'm not saying PFF is right for that. They may have their own system. I'm always going to refer to, like what Jacob just said, as the linebacker on the strong side of the formation in a 43 defense as the Sam backer, okay? The problem I have is there's many people, especially in draft season, we have a lot of draft experts, and a lot of people that go, no, he better suits the Sam. And I'm going, okay. People who say Chop Robinson better suits the Sam, but they're referring to, I'm looking at the Sam as a stack backer, right? Those people are looking as a Sam as someone who just strictly rushes the passer, right? Some will say a Sam backer is more of a run defensive backer, right? Well, if that's the case, and you do play a 43-man coverage defense, whether it's a cover one robber or if it's a cover 2-man shell, that Sam is going to be man coverage on the tight end in some cases. So you're telling me you would like to have Chop Robinson playing man coverage against Sam Laporta? It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So I think a lot of people just they just kind of speak. They're just regurgitating what they're hearing. What we're going to try to do today is give you some still shots of these defenses and try to explain, like, hey, it's not so cut and dry. A Sam is just simply going to do this, right? And there's going to be some 4-3 defenses that apply that. There's going to be 34 hybrids that really apply that. Bill Belichick's 34 hybrid that he ran in New England forever is a perfect example, like a Matthew Judon. He's listed as an outside linebacker, right? Most of the time, he would line up on the strong side of the formation. Well, Matthew Judon is not a cover linebacker. He's more of a pass rusher, more of an edge defender, right? As where if you turn on the 49er tape, you're throwing in a Dre Greenlaw or an Oren Burks. Those guys aren't pass rushers, right? They're more of just your traditional stack backers. Baltimore does more of a 34 hybrid. At least they were. I didn't watch a whole lot of tape from last year. So with that being said, let's hit the comments real quick. Usually this triggers a couple of questions. Ron says, you've probably given us information on him, but is Jeren Jones a fit at slot corner? Do you remember, Jacob, if he's a good slot or not?
Yeah, he would be. I personally love him. He's a Florida State guy.
Mm-hmm.
He, in my opinion, if I remember correctly, Clayton, you did not have him in your top 10 of cornerbacks, but a lot of places have him in their like top 5. I've seen some of them even being, I think, as high as like the 3rd overall corner. He has, I believe, played. He's one of those dudes that had played deep and the box and wide corner. So I think he's really versatile. I personally like him a lot. I'd be really excited if the Packers got him, but I know some people are a little bit lower on him.
Let me see if I can find him on my new big board. I could pull up the graphic, but I've got my updated version that's not actually in our images yet. We said Jeren Jones, right?
Yep, Florida State.
Jeren Jones, Florida State. Yeah, I had him way lower than most people, and I should be able to give you guys an explanation as to why he's lower. And again, this isn't me watching the tape. This is me compiling information early in the process to make sure that guys are we're not putting too much stock into some of the newer information that's dropping, if you will. You'll see people, they'll hold off on their boards until the combine and everything. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, so your board had a huge impact or the combine had a huge impact on your board, right? I'm not seeing him here on my updated board. There he is. I've got him in the 162 spot, guys. 162. So how does he end up there? Let's talk about that real quick. He's actually going to be higher than that once the final evaluation is done, but it's not going to be very much higher. He's only going to, looks like he'll probably crack somewhere around 160. So the reason he's so low on my board, okay, in 2022, he graded out as the 352nd best cornerback in the NCAA, right? And then in 2023, he was the 7th highest. So one of the things that I like to do, and I'm really applying it this year, is I'm going to go back to the previous year, whether it's good or bad, right? And the reason being is Jayden Reed. No one's seen Jayden Reed coming. Ryan did a good job the other day talking about how he was, I can't remember the exact number, but he was somewhere down like around 180 or something on the consensus big board. It was real low. And all of a sudden the Packers take him and goes, where did this come from? Go back to 2022 and watch the tape. Or in that case, 2021, 2 years, one full season before he came out in the draft, not his last college year, right? So in that case, with Jeren Jones, his grade was significantly lower in 2022. So if you remove that, he was 7th highest in 2023, okay? The consensus big board, when I compiled my data, the consensus big board had him in the 187 spot, Jacob. This is what I'm talking about. I went to the consensus big board as soon as the NFL season was over, before these players can start getting shuffled around from the combine and everything, before they're running around in their underwear and just, wow, look how good this player is, I go and snatch that information right then from the consensus big board because I know the politicking that's going to go on behind the scenes. You got these media members that are wanting their foot in the door and have access to these universities, so they're going to build certain prospects up. I love hearing NFL scouts go, yeah, I'm seeing big boards, and I'm going, what happened from the end of the college season to before the combine? Why in the world did they jump? What did they see all of a sudden? They haven't played another snap of football, right? So that's why I take a lot of stock in that. But that being said, 7th this year, PFF grade amongst corners, and then the consensus big board would have been 187, giving him a 182 grade, which puts him at the 162 spot. See what I'm saying? So with that being said, if you took those two numbers, right, and you averaged them out just 7 and 187, that's probably going to put you somewhere in the 90 range. So without the PFF grade from 2022, he would be in the top 100. He'd be right around the 90 mark, which would put him right above Chris Abrams-Drain amongst my top cornerbacks. All right, he's in the 95 spot. So that's kind of giving you guys perspective of how my board lies. Again, it's not my personal opinion. I don't go watch the tape and go, yep, he's better than him. I'm just I'm removing all of my personal opinion and taking the information that I trust, compiling it into one big database, and that's how I come up with my draft board. So, if you're going to include the positive aspect of going 2 years removed from the draft or 2 years prior to the draft and including that grade, then you got to be fair and include the negative as well. So that's why Jeren Jones is where he is. And some teams may go, I don't care what happened in 2022. 2023, he was a stud. Let's take him. We see it in the NFL, Jacob. Like, you'll look at people's grades and go, wow, he's dominant this year. What's he done the last 3 years? He hasn't done anything. Ryan does a good job on his pod talking about this. Common sense would suggest that's the outlier, right? Him overperforming that year. Does that make sense, man?
Yeah, totally.
So that's why he's lower on my board. Now, if you were to pull him up on PFF and look at the slot, I think he did have a lot of slot snaps. So there you go. Yeah. Ron Samble said, I see you at a top 30 with the Packers, Jones. So there you go. And keep in mind, Goody does things a little different, but he still has a lot of Ted Thompson in him. Ted Thompson used to take his top 30 draft visits, and he would use it on the majority of them being undrafted free agents potentially, because he would want that inside information on the undrafted free agents and have kind of a step up. That's how you end up signing your Tramon Williamses, your Sam Shields, right? You bring them into the building, you get a closer look at them. And also when you do top 30 visits, this is another thing, the cat and mouse game of draft season, which I absolutely love, is when you do a top 30 visit, you're telling the entire league, we're interested in that player.
Yeah.
Right. So if you do a top 30 visit with a true top 30 player, guess what? Other teams are going to go, Packers are interested in him. We might want to take him, try to leapfrog him. Right. So there's a little bit of that cat and mouse game there too. Prince in the chat said Jones had been available late 3, early 4 on a lot of mocks we did. Seems to be a riser. There you go. So if he was, let's say he was a 4th rounder, Jacob, that would put him right around the 100 spot, wouldn't it? Somewhere in that mark.
Yep.
So there you go. So yeah, my board is definitely in the minority. It seems like here recently with Jeren Jones as far as where he sits. And again, it's not like I'm sitting here going, my board is better than everyone else's. It's just the way I like to compile the information. I like to kind of try to look at it a little more globally rather than who's the hot commodity right now. And obviously I've been very, very vocal that I put minimal stock into the combine. Like Daniel Jeremiah said, it has its place. The pro days, the combines have their places. But you always want to put top priority on the tape, and in this case, the grades of the players, in my opinion. So I'll give you a good example. There was some clips, Jacob, that was coming all over Twitter this morning. Guess who it was? It was our boy, what's his name? Zach Wilson. He got drafted by the Jets. Him out there in a tank top and shorts, right? Running to his left, throwing across his body 65 yards down the field, wowing everybody with that arm talent. How did that pan out? So
yeah, I saw that they were comparing AJ McCarthy when he did that. He did like a rollout to his left and threw across his body, and they're like, "Oh, they're doing the Zach Wilson throw." And I'm like,
yeah. Don't think I'd be trying to do that personally. So
all right.
Yeah, that's good stuff, though, man. Great job bringing that information up for sure. And let me check PFF and answer his question. If you'll pull that first one that was marked there, Jacob, I do want to give him an answer on that with Jeren Jones and if he's a slot corner or not. I can give you the exact snaps real quick since it was asked in here. I love it that we were trying to steer the conversation away from the draft because I don't want to bore people with the draft. And the chat always comes back to the draft. So we're going to try to give you guys and gals what you want as far as the content goes. Jeren Jones. So PFF has him ranked 98th. All right. And when you look at his snaps in 2023, 394 snaps in the slot. If you go to 2022, he played outside 376 snaps. So that's another thing to take into consideration, Jacob. Maybe they were playing him in the wrong spot,
Right.
2021, 61 was a PFF grade. 2022, 70 was a PFF grade. 2023, 90.1 was the PFF grade. So that's another piece of important information to go, okay, they tried him in the slot his final year in college, and he absolutely dominated. So that could be the problem, playing him out of position. So that's good stuff, man. All right, so there you go. Yeah, he's definitely, according to his 2023 numbers, Ron, he is definitely more of a slot corner. Okay, so Brock in the chat says thoughts on Justin Simmons playing box safety for us. Jake, let me get your take on it. I'm gonna pull his information up on PFF real quick. How do you feel about Justin Simmons? Have you given that much thought?
Kind of. I thought I saw some internet chatter that he had either posted something saying that he wanted to be a Packer, that he wouldn't mind being a Packer, something along those lines. Maybe I'm imagining that, but I thought for sure that I saw some sort of internet chatter that he was kind of hinting towards he would like to join the squad. I mean, personally, if the money was right, I think it'd be all right. I don't really quite know how he's graded out recently. I know that for a while he was kind of like considered a good safety.
Yeah, I know that when we originally talked about him, I wasn't very big on him because they had big money attached to him, right? Like he was going to be one of the higher paid safeties in free agency. Obviously, he sat on the market for a while. That value has dropped significantly. Now, if you look at his PFF grades starting in 2016, 75, 74, 60, 90, 77, 74, 70, 67. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
this explains why I wasn't as big on him. Obviously, if you're hovering in the 70s, you're a good player, man. You're consistent, right? The 90 is obviously the outlier there in 2019, right? So you go from 90, let's start in 2019, 90, 77, 74, 70, 67. According to PFF, and PFF isn't everything, it's just another tool we can use. He has gone down. His play has gone down every single year since 2019. Okay, and people go, well, how old is he? He is 30 years old. So, unless he gets on the Tom Brady express train there of just finding the fountain of youth, history suggests he's going to continue to decline, right? Now, that doesn't mean that he can't be a good player for the Packers at the right price. I just remember when we talked about him in free agency, it was like, hey, this is one of these guys that's probably going to break the bank, right? Now, when you talk about the snaps and where they played, you just asked about him being a box safety, right? In 2023, he played 594 snaps at free safety. So that's more of the opposite of the tight end side. And typically the free safety will play your deeper role, whether you're in a cover one man, you're in a cover three, whatever it is. He played 230 snaps in the box. So he definitely played more of a free safety role. I'll go back how many years he played more free safety snaps than strong safety. 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020. Matter of fact, he has never in his career has he had more snaps in the box than he has at free safety. So hopefully that answers your question there on Justin Simmons. And again, in today's NFL, like we talked about, specifically in defenses like Fangio's, and I know we're not running Fangio's, but it's now that Barry's gone, which we didn't even run Fangio's last year, which is hilarious. Other than the run fit scheme and showing too high shell, we always rotated a single cover, cover one man or a cover three, which is still a single high middle field close look. Um, you know, safeties in the NFL today have to be able to play both spots. We showed it on the Xavier McKinney Chalk Talk. You guys remember we broke down his Chalk Talk there, like 3 different plays. There was one play that he came up and was playing technically in the box and was designed to cover the tight end where he jumped the smoke route, picked it off. There was another play where he was playing just simply single high middle field close. He was at cover one safety over the top, right? And he made the toe tap interception on the sideline. And then there was another play where he was showing like he was playing man coverage underneath on a trip set on the trip side, and then faded back into what I believe ended up being a cover 2 man where he had enough athleticism to get back, which, by the way, we opened this up talking about me not being real big on the combine stuff and the RAS, not taking it too serious, if you will, or putting too much stock in it. He had pretty bad RAS, if I remember correctly, right, Jacob? Didn't he have like a 6 or something, if I remember right?
Yeah, I know he ran like the 4.6s, I want to think.
Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question there, Brock, on Justin Simmons. According to PFF, he is more of a free safety than a box safety. And again, the reason I'm not very big on him is because he has declined in his grade the last 5 years, and he's now 30 years old. So history would suggest he's not going to get better.
This here was what I was referencing from Miss Smitty.
Gotcha. Okay. M. Smitty says, Jacob, there was a Reddit post in regards to a rumor he was in talks about a contract with Green Bay. Got it. There was also rumors about Micah Hyde too, wasn't there, Jacob? Am I remembering right? There was
That was from rumor, I think is the right way to say it. Rumor from one dude who I think called his shot like a few hours before he then made a post. So I think that guy just stirred up his own I think he stirred up his own stuff trying to create a controversy. And it worked. We're talking about it.
I know he's got a podcast too. He's only got like 3,000 followers, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying, oh, he's a little guy. Like it, typically people, you immediately go, okay, how long has someone been doing this? Like my followers on Twitter to me is a big miscalculation of who I am. Like there's no way a knucklehead like me should have over 10,000 followers. So I don't get on there and go draft expert, whatever. I'm just a fan. I'm a fan that does a podcast. That's it. I'm trying not to act like anything else. But one thing I will say about him, he does have media credentials. And when Aaron Rodgers won MVP, you can see it. It's pinned on his Twitter account. He actually asked Aaron Rodgers a question on the Skype there when he won what Aaron refers to as the COVID MVP. But so he does have some, he's got more credentials than me. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But obviously it hasn't come to fruition. And I will say this: all he said was it's nowhere near being done, but they are in talks. Okay, Green Bay could have called his agent and said, "Hey, how much we looking here?" That's technically talking to him, right? It doesn't mean that someone is real high on their priority list. If that makes sense. So there you go. All right, let's see here. All right, let's check this one out. Garrison Anderson in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. He said, what position do you think the normal fan misunderstands the most? Slot defender might be up there for me. Those dudes in modern NFL have to try to cover every type of pass catcher. Yeah, I think people, they hear nickel and they hear slot and they think that's the same thing. In a very common sense, it should be, right? Okay, you got your two best corners out there. Then you bring in your nickel back, right? Not the band that Jacob loves, but you bring in your nickel back and you think he automatically goes to the slot. That's not necessarily the case. Think Charles Woodson. We were running Dom Capers' 34 zone blitz scheme, right? Well, Charles Woodson would be on the field in our 34 base and he'd be an outside corner, right? An outside or a boundary corner. When we would go to the nickel, he would kick into the slot in those early days. Remember that, Jacob? So he was that slot corner, right? So, yeah, I think that's a good position, Garrison, for sure. And again, Sam is another one that I think is kind of getting misconstrued. We're all guilty of this as fans. We speak in generality, right? When in all honesty, things are a lot more complex than they actually sound or we want them to seem. But it's not that anybody's doing it on purpose. It's just you get all these terms thrown out. And like me and Jacob have pointed out, ever since we started podcasting together, for the last 2 years, there's many people that they want to sound smarter than they are. They want to, let me kind of coin my own phrase around this. And that's where I always tell fans, man, you come up with your terminology. It's best to take someone's terminology that's been around the game and use that as the base foundation. But whatever works best for you to be able to understand the game, communicate it to yourself, and taking notes and oh yeah, I want to set a reminder that, hey, this guy did this. Like you'll hear me say goose, right? Goose. I heard a high school coach. Yeah, they played goose all day long. There's some people that watch football their whole life go, I've never heard goose in my life, right? I hadn't heard it till I met that Tennessee football coach. All goose is zero coverage. They're playing goose up top. They're playing zero. Goose, one syllable, 0-2, right? He refers to it as goose. So it all comes down to what you're comfortable, communicating. So, yeah. Some people, I love the fans, though, that do get mad when you start to point out stuff on the tape. Oh, this, and this. This is actually what happened. That's what we try to do on Chalk Talk after games. What happened? Why did it happen? Rather than just being drunken ranters, on live streams going, this defense sucked. Okay, why did it suck? Right. It wasn't the play call. All right. Okay. It was this player missed his assignment. What happened? Why did it happen? That's the whole purpose of doing Chalk Talk. And again, you just got to come up with your own way that makes it easy for you, man. And don't let anybody tell you can't fan the way you want to fan, man. I about cussed. Whoa, that was close. That stuff drives me crazy. It's like, who the hell is someone else to tell you that you need to, fan exactly the way they fan? The other common theme is when you talk about, I really like this. What do you want to see in the draft? Stop with the word salad. That's the big thing. I just want good football players. You know what that tells me? You're too lazy to figure out what the team needs. And that's okay if you want to fan that way. But to come at someone else and say that's just word salad, you're trying, it just drives me insane. It's like, what are we even doing here? So yeah, Garrison Clayton had his coffee this morning. You got that right, buddy. I'm ready to go, man. I just want to make sure that people on this pod understand that it's about learning together, and don't let anybody, if someone else is out there telling you you're stupid for feeling a certain way about a prospect, or this will never happen. Okay. Thanks for commenting, Cheech. Thanks for dropping by. But I did a mock draft, and this is how I think it could happen. Who the heck are you to tell me it couldn't? Or better yet,
who in the hell is Mel Kiper in a way?
I heard a really good quote. I can't remember who it was from, but basically the gist of it was, after the draft is done and complete, the consensus, ratings and rankings, that is what ends up being the fake news or the outlier. That's what was actually, everybody just assumes that, well, this guy won't go there because I did like 18 mock drafts and he never makes it to the second round. But it's like, once the actual reality occurs, you look back at those rankings and that was a complete, it was BS, you know what I mean? And everybody just used that as like, it was the, God's written truth kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that it'll be, everybody, like you said, fan the way you want to fan, but I think it's good to take a step back and realize that, like, you're not an expert. Even the quote unquote experts don't know what the heck's going to happen. So,
yeah. And the closest thing we have to those experts, Jacob, are the people who have actually been in the building, right? Yeah. And those are the people that these gatekeepers, right? They're the ones that they bash the most. Like, you get someone like a Bill Polian will get on ESPN and talk, or Scott Pioli. Scott Pioli ain't even good enough to be in the league. Bro, you haven't sniffed the league. This dude's been in draft rooms. What are we talking about? Michael Lombardi's another one. They can't. People hate Michael Lombardi. He's brash. He can be an a-hole. I get it. That dude has studied under some of the greatest football minds. Being in a car driving Bill Walsh from I guess what would technically be a pro day, prospect visits across the country, in the car with Bill Walsh picking his brain. But knucklehead over here that's been podcasting for however many years, he's going to jump in, Lombardi doesn't know anything. It's like, what kind of ego do you have to have? Nobody gives a rat's ass that your grandpappy's been going to games. You know what I'm saying? Like, that blows my mind that you would have that much of an ego to think I'm the guy. I'm the one. We'll tell you what to think. We'll tell you when you're okay with, don't waste your time on that. My favorite was, I asked one of these quote unquote experts, you think Kenny Clark's performing up to the level of the cap hit that, that he's kind of eating up? You pay Kenny Clark whatever he wants. Okay. All right. That's a heck of a take. Yeah. Forget how he's playing on the field. He's Kenny Clark. You just give him the money. All right, got it. Blows my mind, man. But anyway, yeah. So I like this one right here. You had it marked, Jacob. SPM40 said Jacob might be a closet Swiftie.
I don't know why that came up, but whatever.
Maybe it is too much Taylor Swift.
That leads us right into our next comment, which Mace Taggart said, at Good Morning Lambeau. Good morning, Clayton. Your opinion on Love's sudden celebrity and America's new love affair with Love and the Packers. Hey, seen him. What was that podcast he was just on, Jacob?
I can't remember, but it was they're definitely starting to shine some positive light all of a sudden back on the Packers again. I know that for a long time we were shunned because of our boy A-Rod, but it seems like we're starting to get some media love again.
Yeah, and Jordan was on the podcast he's on. I think it was Channing Crowder is one of the guys. I know Ryan Clark is another guy that does the pod. Clark. Those are the type of podcasts I'm talking about. These are guys that have been on the freaking field. Dan Orlovsky's another one. People like to bash Dan Orlovsky, and it's like, the dude made it to the NFL. Kurt Benkert's another one. Like, He's made it to the NFL. I'm gonna shut my mouth, lower my ego, and listen to what these guys and gals have to say, man. People who have been in and around the game their entire life, it's important. It's definitely important. But yeah, I love what Jordan Love said on that pod, and my favorite one was they were talking about heroes. Quarterback is kind of treated as heroes. The pivot, there you go. Thank you, Cornelius. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, Robbie. I love they asked him about, you kind of hero status being a quarterback in Green Bay, and he brung it right back down. He said, the heroes in my life were my parents, my mom and my dad. He said they were both police officers, and hearing my mom tell me stories, you guys know now, Jordan Love has come out and talked about it several times, how his dad passed away when he was, I think, 14 years old. And he's talking about, hearing my mom tell me the stories about my dad out here fighting crime and that's a real hero, was kind of the message he sent. Oh, my God, dude. Like, give me a damn Jordan Love jersey right now. Like, I just love when we acknowledge people. Listen, there's bad apples in everything. I don't care what the profession is, right? Some people are going, you're a bad apple in podcasting, Clay. You're probably right. But there's bad apples in every profession, right? But those men and women that go out there and lay their freaking life on the line every single day, whether it's the military, the police, firefighters, EMS, whatever it is, man, they're running towards danger when everyone else is running away. It's just amazing the society we've got today. How people got their smartphone out recording it and they're laughing until crap hits the fan. Then all of a sudden everybody starts screaming. It's like, wait, where's that energy you had 10 seconds ago? And then the people they want to bash, like the police officers, like Jordan Love's parents, they're the ones running towards. So I want to make that abundantly clear on our podcast, that how much we appreciate those who allow us to live in a safer country. Again, not perfect, but it's just important to keep things in perspective. And I love that about Jordan Love, Mace, that he brung that up on his podcast. It was just phenomenal. His mom seems like one of the best people, and she's always trying to stay out of the spotlight too. You notice that, Jacob?
Yep. Yeah.
So, it's just cool, man. Yeah, cool. I like this. M. Smitty says only bad apple is Emilio and his little My Little Pony pajamas.
It's true.
Emilio was supposed to be on here this morning, man. I guess he just didn't get up, Jacob. I don't know.
Oh, he is. I don't want to get into stereotypes, but yeah,
Jacob, we can do one of two things, man. We can kind of go through these positional breakdowns with the linebackers and the Jets and the 49ers defenses, or we can hit that article you have. What would you rather do, man?
We could try to knock the article out quick, and then if we still had time, we could finish up with the linebacker stuff. You want to do that?
Cool. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Go ahead. Cool. I know you said you came across an article in chat. Let us know your opinion here too on what he's talking about here, what he's going to be reading. Go ahead, Jake.
So yeah, it's from yardbarker.com. Mike Santa Barbara is the author. It's just simply called The 3 Hottest Seats in the Green Bay Packers. And it kind of struck me as a little bit clickbaity because I was like, is there really any hot seats at the Green Bay Packers? But to be fair, the 3 names he came up with, I think, they're worth at least examining. So number 1 was Christian Watson. A little bit of a up and down season last year, especially compared to that stretch he had, which I still don't think people realize that might have been one of the best stretches a wide receiver has had in recent history. Like if you go back in that 4 or 5 game stretch, dude, that was just insane. So he ended up with 28 catches, 422 yards, only 5 touchdowns. People say that's a bad year. I think that when you compare it to the wide receiver group we had and how much we spread the ball around, it wasn't horrible, but obviously he had the nagging hamstring injury. And it made me basically, it posed a question, is if you had to right now decide if you were going to extend him and offer him a new deal, would you want to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And looking at his PSF grades, that stretch you're talking about was at Detroit and then the Kansas City game. He graded out 87.7 and the 88.9. Now, the rest of the league, it was bad. Or the rest of the season, it was pretty bad, right? 60, 62, 57, 55, 62, 54, 56. And you got the 87, 88, 59, 58. Obviously, the injury kind of taking over there toward the end. His grade ended up being a 68.2. I think he's grading out as like a third wide receiver. If you looked across the league, he's legitimately a number 3 receiver. Now, what did you give up? 34th overall pick, right? You'd like to hit on that second rounder. Obviously 6'5", 208. He's only 24 years old. But we want to re-sign him. If you look at the rest of the roster, that's the problem, right, Jacob? Like when you look at how this roster is constructed, pretty deep at wide receiver. So on the surface, I would say no. but you've also got to take into account what kind of receiver he is and what he does for the rest of the team stretching the field. You've heard Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed and those guys talk about Christian Watson when he's on the field. I mean, it does change the entire dynamic, right? I mean, him stretching the field, making those safeties think a little bit more with that speed, with that size. That back shoulder throw in Kansas City is the one that I look at and go, that kid's come a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to pull up Spotrac real quick and just look at his contract just to make sure. I know he and Romeo Doubs came in the same year, if I remember correctly. Christian Watson, as far as cap hit, $2.5 million against the cap, and his contract, the remainder of his contract, he's under contract for 2024 and 2025. You don't even have to make a decision until next year, right? Where his cap hit will actually, his cap hit next year goes up to $2.9 million. So there's no market value assessment for him because obviously he's not going to be a free agent until, 2026. And he'll be 2020 or 27 years old at that time too. For me, if you're asking what kind of number would you put on it, for someone who plays a significant role and stretches the field, might be in that, $5 to $6 million per range, at least as it sits right now, right? You wouldn't break the bank. And the reason being is because you hit on Tay Wicks, you hit on Jaden Reed, at least it seems like it for the time being. Romeo Doubs emerged as one of those go-to guys in specific situations last year. So for me, right now, and it's really early, we got to see what happens this year, obviously, and even next year too. $5 million is kind of my peak for Christian Watson and what he brings to the table right now. What do you think, Jake?
I mean, yeah, it pains me to admit that he is grading out to equal basically a third string receiver, and I know that we look at him with definite homer glasses on because I personally wanted him to get drafted, was stoked when we got him, was really excited to see that. I still go back to that. If we could change one thing in his career, it would be that opening Hail Mary that Rodgers threw to him. You remember that he dropped in Minnesota?
Yep.
That would I just shudder to think like what could have happened just for the season, for his career. But anyways, for him to fight back then and have that stretch that he did, and now if he can just stay healthy, that's the biggest thing. Is that's what Ron's saying here is if Watson can stay healthy, he'd extend him. He can be a dominant receiver. I agree with that. It's just I don't know anymore. As far as shelling out the money, like you said, that wide receiver room is so deep. It would be a mistake, much like right here when SDN 40 is talking about how the Packers are so loyal and patient, sometimes to a fault. See Amari Rodgers. Oh, Lord.
Also see Newman.
Hello, Newman. So yeah.
So again, we've got 2 years to decide that, right? On a really, really, really reasonable cap hit. The other thing too, you made some changes, you shook some stuff up in the trainer room. Hopefully we can get the injuries under control. If that is the case and he stays healthy, I think you'll see a whole different Christian Watson this year, right? That's what we're hoping for. So all right, carry on with the article there, Jacob.
So number 2 is one that I don't know what I think about it. They have it as Jair Alexander. Basically, it just goes on to talk about how he's been a little bit unreliable. His attitude has been up and down, how he's had that nagging shoulder injury. He obviously had the 1-game suspension, so much so that it only allowed for him to play basically 7 games last year. And they kind of say with how much money that dude is getting and for how much of a, I don't want to say distraction, but for how much he tends to put the spotlight on himself and certain antics and that kind of stuff, that you would hope that he was at least playing at an elite level because his attitude dictates that he gets that. The money he's getting paid dictates that he's at an elite level. So we basically just says he needs to play at an elite level again and re-earn that kind of respect in the league.
Yeah. And that's another big talking point this year, right? Like him and Rashawn Gary. The reality, guys, and again, it's just PFF, but the reality is PFF has Rashawn Gary as our top graded defensive player, Jair Alexander is second. Now, he graded out a 75.9, and that's why I'm cautiously optimistic about Jeff Hafley coming in, because everything I've seen on tape would suggest the players did not play well. Now, you could say that's the defensive coordinator's fault. You could say that's the linebackers coach's fault and the defensive line coach's fault. Absolutely, they've got their hand in it. But if we come out this year, one of two things are going to happen. These guys are either going to go, Ja's going to go back to that elite status, or he's going to hover right around this mark, and we're going to go, okay, maybe we did miss on some of these guys. Not that Ja is a miss overall. I'm just simply saying maybe he's not the player that we paid for and thought he was going to be. Now, when you look at his PFF grades last year by week, okay, and he didn't play the entire season, it's going to be like week 1 and 2, then it jumps to 5, 8, and 9, then 16, 18, wild card, and divisional, okay? His grades 70, 55, 63, 55, 75, 62, 84, 82, 69. So he seemed to catch some fire there right around week 18, right, and play a lot better. Obviously, he's 27 years old, former first-round pick. If you look at his grades by year, okay, starting his rookie year, 72, 71, 90, 73, 80, 75. Okay, so you've seen he peaked at 90. Guys, he hasn't graded out in the 90s since 2020, you know? And if you were to look at that and go, okay, where's his baseline? When you say what's Ja's normal grade? 72, 71, 90, 73, 80, 75. To me, it's right there at that 73 mark. So now you got to ask yourself, for someone who's grading out as a 73. Now, listen, I like Ja. I think he's going to be a part of the team. I want him to be a part of the team. I love his attitude too. I don't like the extreme he took the attitude to last year. Although it is kind of funny when you look back on it. The dude just kind of jumped up there with the captains and said, "Nah, I'm gonna be a captain today." Anyway, his cap hit. The reality is, his cap hit this year is $23.9 million against the cap. All right, he's the second highest cap hit on our team this year. That's the reality. Now, if you look at his contract moving forward, he is under contract through 2026. There's one voidable year for 2027. So in 2025, his cap hit jumps to 25.8. Not a huge jump, just about $2 million, right? That's reasonable. A salary of $16.1 million with a roster bonus of $650,000. So you've got maneuverability, especially with one voidable year. If you wanted to spread some of that cap hit out, you got some flexibility there. In 2026, his cap hit jumps to $27.8 million. So I think there's a good chance he will be on the team in 2025. If he has another year like he had this year, Jacob, I think there's a reasonable chance to look at 2026 and say, okay, the dead cap attached is $10.7 million. The cap hit is $27.8. You may go to him like you did other players in the past and go, let's do this hybrid restructure here. We want to do a little bit of a pay cut, but we're going to convert some of your salary to guaranteed money, so you get a check now and you don't have to worry about getting cut and losing out on the majority of that money, right? Probably going to be one of those hybrid type restructures, I would imagine, because 27.8 is a lot for someone who I think we just determined his baseline is somewhere around a 73 PFF grade.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree. We can move on to the final person. Number 3 is Eric Stokes. This one makes actually a lot of sense. It talks about obviously how he's struggled with injuries, how he's struggled with just fitting into the scheme and really using the skills that he has. He obviously had the Liz Frank injury, then was troubled with hamstring injuries last year as well. So much so that he only was able to play 3 games. Which is really disappointing because he had that somewhat promising rookie year where he played 14 out of 16 games. He graded out decently. And then since then, he's only been able to play in 12 games. So basically right there is a screaming red flag. This year, obviously, he's going to have that chance to battle it out opposite Jair, but I would like to see him get pressured by, obviously, Valentine. If we're going to have Nixon in the slot, I still hope that we bring in at least 2 or 3 more cornerbacks from the draft and have those guys really have a lot of competition in that cornerback room, because if Jair, we're just banking on the fact that Jair will be at that baseline level, but for whatever reason, if he takes a step back, if he has an injury, that cornerback room could be a bleeding wound really, really quickly.
Yeah, and I know many people disagreed with us when we said early. It seems like it's kind of accepted and common knowledge now, but when we first did our roster eval going into the offseason, I said we needed 2 starting corners. We needed an outside corner, we needed a slot corner, right? And we actually needed a backup as well. I think Ballantyne is a good asset. I really do. I think he played pretty well. If you go back and watch his tape against Justin Jefferson, he held his own in that late season game against the Vikings. But when it comes to Eric Stokes, let's try to draw a parallel here with the conversation we just had about Christian Watson, Jacob. Christian Watson, when he's healthy, he's been pretty good, hasn't he?
Yep.
Right? I mean, you've seen when he was peak health, graded out in the 80s, those 2 games. He was hampered with injuries all season, and then obviously it reemerged there at the end after he had those 2 breakout years. With Eric Stokes, you're dealing with injuries too, but his grade is a 51.5. Now, for those that are sitting there thinking, but that's just PFF, Clayton, I challenge you, go watch it. Go watch his highlights. Not even his highlights. Go to NFL Plus. Best investment you can make is NFL Plus. You can get the all 22. I'm telling you, it is worth it, hands down. They've done a good job improving the site now. It used to be absolute cheeks. It's a lot better now. But if you go watch Eric Stokes play, he's supposed to be a man-to-man corner. When you're in man-to-man coverage, he does not track the ball. It's just he looks so out of place. And his grade this year was a 51.5. Last year, they said, he graded out in the 50s as well. I'm going to click on it here, actually, and we'll look at his history.
Look what Ron said, too. It's almost exactly.
What's that?
I said, check out what Ron said. It goes exactly with what you're saying.
Most noticeable to my untrained eyes is he can cover but has no idea where the ball. Amen. Right? That's exactly what I'm seeing. It's like he's got the physical ability, the traits, the tools to play at the next level, which is exactly what Daniel Jeremiah talked about, that speed is more important for cornerbacks than it is wide receivers, because a corner has to be able to match speed. A wide receiver can dictate the speed in which the play is unfolding at, right? But yeah, he's got the speed, the athletic ability to keep up with the receivers, but he just doesn't track the ball, where it's like he's lacking that awareness. Now, when we look at his PFF grade here, obviously he only played in 2 games last year, but it was a 46 and a 58, and they shut it back down, right? And that was a terrible injury he suffered the year before. But here's the reality. 2021, 988 snaps. That's a big sample size, graded out of 65. Typically, players, the rookie year, if they grade out in the 60s, they go on to be pretty good pros. That's what we've noticed, right? 65, his rookie year. 2022, only 477 snaps, but he graded out a 53. Immediately, the response we hear from fans that like Eric Stokes is, well, the whole defense was playing bad. You got to throw that. Okay, let's throw that out. Then we come out this year, and he grades out a 51.5. Well, he only played in 2 games. There's a lot of wells in there, isn't there, Jake? It's like you get to the point where you go, at what point do we go, okay, maybe we just missed on this one? Do you feel that way or no?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really do think that this is going to be a really interesting preseason. Do you think that they're going to let Stokes play in the preseason, or some of these guys? Because it's usually, we don't have any of the older guys anymore that, we're protecting for their injuries. Like the Box are not here anymore, the Jones, the Rogers, all those guys. So I'm wondering, like, if it's going to be a lot more physical, letting them play a lot more camp battles, being, actually using those games as more of a test rather than just like going through the motions,
I wish I had an answer that I'm firm on, but I don't know, man, because like Bach said in the interview with Wildy and Tausch, like hopefully they've learned their lesson, and Wildy went on, I believe, to say they did seem to adjust since then, because what Bach was saying, like, there's no reason we should be in full pads in week 17. We've already played 16 games. Right. If you go out there in full pads, only bad things can happen in full pads that late in the season. And that's pretty much what happened, right? So the question is, are they going to adjust, or now do they look at it like, okay, all the old heads are out of here. Let's just we're going to practice in pads all year long. Listen, there's pros and cons to every decision made with an organization, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, regular business. There's pros and cons to every decision that's made for management. The pro to practicing in full pads is you're gonna stay a little finer tuned, right? Like you're gonna be a little bit more on top of your game. The cons are you're gonna be susceptible to injury, right? It's just the way it is. But back to Eric Stokes, looking at his contract, his cap hit this year is $3.7 million. Totally reasonable, right? Totally reasonable. When you look at his contract, this is the last year of his contract. Okay, so he is going to be up for a 5th-year option. I'm not a big fan of the 5th-year option personally. I'm just not. it's you're kind of not accelerating, you're blimping up that cap hit, Jacob. You've seen it with Darnell Savage, right? We just paid Darnell Savage I think it was 7.8, 7.7, $7.8 million fully guaranteed last year, right? And now he's gone. And it's just like, what was the purpose of picking up the fifth-year option? It's kind of there, and the reason the owners fought for the fifth-year option was to bridge the gap and give these owners another full year to negotiate a contract. You've seen it with Rashawn Gary. We used the fifth-year option, bought us time, we got the contract done, rather than tick, tick, tick. Again, the cap is real. I'm not one of those guys that says the cap is fake. The cap is very real from a time-sensitive standpoint. There are deadlines you got to meet. And if you don't meet that deadline, bye-bye to that player, right? That's where it's very real. You can maneuver this cap around 1,000 different ways. And if the point is, get the players you need to be successful at all costs. Do what you got to do to make that happen. The mistakes are being made in front offices and thinking, we got this player, he's the one. Look at Russell Wilson. 2 years ago, Denver was, we got our guy, wasn't they, Jake?
Yeah.
That didn't work out.
Let's ride, Broncos.
And just for those of you wondering, like, what do you mean by fifth-year option? With the new CBA it's several years old now, all the rookies are on 4-year deals that are drafted, okay? So if you got drafted, you're on a 4-year deal, and it's all slotted by the position in which you were drafted. For a first-round pick, the club has an option to slap what they call a fifth-year option on a first-round pick going into the last year of their season, and that deadline's coming up. That'll be coming up this summer, I believe. It's either late spring or early summer that they'll have to make a decision on whether they want to put a fifth-year option on Eric Stokes. And the way the fifth-year option works is it'll be a fully guaranteed 1-year deal, and they've got to play under that deal. Eric Stokes' number is going to be $12.4 million.
Jeez.
So, Jacob, my question to you is,
No.
would you be willing to give him a fifth-year option based off what we've seen, both injury and both performance on the field? I know I wouldn't. It's a pretty hard no.
No. I think this is a good point, too. Oh, not that one. I think that Kenny Clark deserves to be on that list if I was going to be writing this.
Yeah, I don't want to see. I hate the way it's being worded. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see anybody be on a hot seat, man. If anyone in here has ever lost a job, man, you got to go home and face your family. Like, that's the worst feeling in the world, right? And it's like, I hate that we just so loosely throw it around, but it's part of the game, right? It's part of the bid. They're getting paid a bunch of money. People are listening to me going, Clayton, I've been pouring concrete for 10 years. I ain't worried about this dude who just made $27.4 million. I get that. I understand where you're coming from. I do. I just I want to be fair to the players too when we're just, making comments like this. But yeah, Kenny Clark, $27.4 million cap hit, man. And now here's what's crazy. If you go based off his production, and this is why, I told you I asked someone before, they'll remain nameless, but they just scoffed at it. So you pay Kenny Clark whatever he wants. All right. 27.4 is his cap hit this year. If we click on Kenny Clark, it's a contract year, obviously. Now we got 3 voidable years already tacked on. So he's going to be against the cap in 25 for 5.4, 26 for 5.4, and 27 for 2.7. If you sign him to another deal, you got to tack on those new numbers on. If he does not re-sign, that all accelerates to 2025. So you're going to have about a $12 million cap penalty that's going to accelerate. Or actually, I'm sorry, $13.7 million. So that's the benefit to re-signing him, is you can kind of bring that cap hit on the end of his career if you make him a Packer for life, bringing a nice, easy landing rather than just a screeching halt, right, at the end. But if you were to look at his market value, he's one of the players that does have a market value. We just talked about his cap hit was, 27.4, right, Jacob?
Yep.
His calculated market value is $16.7 million. So if you were to look at it strictly from a business standpoint, forget the great smile, forget Kenny the leader, forget Kenny the person, and just go, okay, is this business asset worth what we're paying? You're overpaying $10 million according to the market value. And that's based off of his production. And what I mean by that is his production. Let me ask you guys this. Would you be willing to pay 27.5, 27.4, whatever the number? It probably changes off the screen now. It's probably changed 6 times. Let's just say $27 million. Would you be willing to pay these players $27 million? I'll list them up for you. David Onyemata. All right. Dalvin Tomlinson. Grady Jarrett, Javon Hargrave. I don't think anybody would be running to the checkbook going, let's give him $27 million, right, against the cap. All those players. Those are the 4 players that Kenny Clark is comping out to. This has nothing to do with PFF, right? This is spot tracks, calculated market value, all right? And the way that they compared them is game played percentage, sacks per game, tackles per game, hurries, stops, and then an overall rating, okay? So Kenny Clark grading out against those guys, his games played, that's one thing about Kenny. You know, we talk about the number one ability is availability. He has been available, hasn't he, Jacob? I mean, he's been tough and been available to the Packers. Sacks per game, he's below Javon Hargrave, right? He's above the other 3. Tackles per game, Kenny is the second lowest of those players. Hurries per game, I know we look at him as a pass rusher. He's the second best pass rusher amongst those 5 players. He'll be in the 5th included in those other 4. Stops, meaning, you know, like run stops, he would be the lowest graded player there, which is what we've kind of talked about. He's a great pass rusher. He's just not good at playing the run. And his rating comes to a 67.6. So if you went all the way across the board with those comps, Javon Hargrave, 72.6. These aren't PFF grades. These are spot track contract ratings, okay? Based off of performance, both in the passing game, you know, rushing the passer and stopping the run. Dalvin Tomlinson at a 76, David Onyemata at a 73, the average coming to 74, and Kenny's is a 67.6. So you go negative 8.7%, right, with a median prime percentage change of 2.1, an average prime percentage change of 2.3, and his calculated market value comes to 3 years, $50.3 million, coming out to an average cap hit of $16.7 million. So that's how we come up with those numbers. Again, it has nothing to do with PFF or anything like that. And I like this right here. Omer says, I think Kenny take less to stay, but he'll probably get the market to go elsewhere. He's been a very good player for a while. Others know that. And the other thing too, Omer, everyone always says, well, it's just the defense he's playing in. We get to see Kenny for the first time in a 4-3 defense, Jacob.
Yeah.
And it's funny. Now would be the time. Let's talk about the difference, but we're out of time. So we'll do that this afternoon. But, yeah, because you're going to be playing more of a one-gap approach. You're not going to be playing pre-snap shell, right, where that safety has to get down in there and try to make the run fit. Guys, I think, will be lined up in a single high look a large majority of the time. There's going to be a little more safety in the box action going on. And he's going to have more of a one-gap responsibility, which simply means this is his gap. You shoot that gap and you play the run on your way to the passer. In a 34 jam front, in some cases, you're covering 2 gaps. Now, most of the time last year, they played one-back sets. 1 back equals 1 gap. 2 backs equals 2 gaps. So when you play San Fran, you go to more of a 2-gap approach. I was trying to get Mike Wall on the show this morning, but he's traveling in Texas for his kid's soccer game. We're going to get him on real soon. I want to just shut up and get his take on all this stuff. But, yeah, so I think you'll probably see the best version of Kenny that we've ever seen this year because it does allow the defensive lineman to play a little more freely. So it's a good time for him too, Jacob. He comes out this year and has a dominant year and grades out in the 80s or the 90s. You know, like his best graded year was actually under Mike Pettin, right? So Mike Pettin, this defense this year is going to be much closer to a Mike Pettin defense as opposed to defenses in the past. Although Mike Pettin, I don't want to mislead you here. It was a 34 defense too. It wasn't a 4-3. But again, Jeff Hafley has some small ties to Mike Pettin back in his Cleveland Brown days too. So we may see the best version of Kenny this year. I hope so. You're not going to find a better dude, a better leader. It's just, if his cap hit was $16 million with no voidable years, I'd be like, bro, yes, worth every dime. It's just unfortunately right now the numbers just don't add up. So
yeah.
Anybody else on that list, Jake?
Nope, that was it.
I'm glad you brought that up, dude. You do the best. Your strength, one of your strengths, you got many strengths. One of your strengths, though, is finding these articles and uncovering this information behind this. It's really cool to include the chat, too. It's awesome. So appreciate you bringing that up, buddy. Let's see. Cornelius in the chat said, this is why I love the 4-3. Wyatt, Brooks, Clark should have good seasons. And if they don't, Cornelius, then we finally know they're not the guys, right? So you're getting answers either way. And I'm with you. I'm expecting everyone to excel a little bit on the defensive line. I think that'll happen. We just got to get that linebacker room filled out, and it sounds like we're going to do that in the draft or maybe on the backside of free agency. So, yeah. All right. With that being said, guys, we're already over on time. This flew by, Jacob. When we get in here and chop it up, we start talking X's and O's and numbers and all this stuff, man. It goes by so quick. But you got any parting thoughts? Anything else you want to hit on before we go, man?
I do, actually. Our boy Kadar Holman, he is no longer a free agent. He has been signed by the Baltimore Ravens. So congrats to you, Kadar. And then something that's kind of cool. I don't know if you even realize this, Clayton, or anybody in the chat, but by this time next week, maybe even before that, we will be surpassing 1 million views on our YouTube channel.
Woo! Let's go.
Just over 2 years old. And yeah, cool. So appreciate everybody that's been watching and on this journey. So that's cool.
I want to say I appreciate everybody reaching out, about the channel, not having monetization status right now. The amount of emails, texts that I've gotten from listeners going, "Hey man, just set up Patreon. We got you. Just set up Patreon. You guys and gals are awesome." Like, I hope it doesn't come to that. I loved what we were creating here on YouTube. And I talked to him again this morning. Still don't have answers. The answers are extremely vague. They're now taking it to basically we can't tell you what you did wrong because the internal team handles that. Okay, well, let me speak to the internal team. Well, you can't speak to the internal team. Okay, so I said, just give me one example of a video. That way I know moving forward, we won't do that. No examples. What I think it is the YouTube shorts. YouTube kept hitting me with notifications going, create shorts. It'll create engagement for your channel, this and that. I don't like shorts. Like, I would rather not take the time to create those. I created the channel so we can get in here and talk with fans, right? That was the whole goal. And we could all have a conversation and learn together. So it sounds like we're narrowing it down to it might be the shorts that we uploaded. I was told that you can use copyright material, but if it triggers a copyright, then the creator of that original clip, they get the monetization, which is fine. We didn't create the channel to try to make money on YouTube. We created the channel to reach a broader audience of Packer fans and just talk ball. So that's fine too. But it sounds like there's a different set of rules with shorts. I think that's what we've got it narrowed down to. But again, there's no guarantees. We're going to continue to put the content out. We have to. What I highly recommend is everyone in your notepad, whatever on your phone, go put down Packers Total Access at gmail.com. Okay. At Packers_access and the phone number 865-658-5824. Okay. That's how you can get in contact with us directly. If for some reason they don't tell us what exactly is going on and they just take the channel down altogether, that's fine. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be somewhere. We'll be somewhere doing this same exact thing. Everything that we're doing here is completely separate from YouTube. It's just one of many links that can be attached to our software to put that information out. So we'll figure out a way to get it in your hands. Again, like I told them at YouTube, we want to continue to use this platform. I need to know what we're allowed to do and what we aren't allowed to do. Because we always, I sent them an example of what we did, Jacob, and how we'll show a video. We'll give credit to the video. Here's where you can find it, right? Show it. And then we react to it. They said that's completely within the guidelines. I'm like, right. So what's the problem? Well, I'll have to find out. Okay, cool. Well, in the meantime, I'm fielding, 30 emails a day from people going, "Hey man, what happened?" To our posse. Because that's something that you guys created, being a member of the PTA posse. Like, that wasn't our idea. That was listeners going, "Hey, we need to create a group. We need to create a membership group, this and that." So we can do it. We can go with Patreon and you guys can support the channel, because the reality is this: if you want a little behind the scenes look, the giveaways we did, I've spent about $2,500 in cash buying autographed memorabilia to give back to you guys for supporting us. That's the reality, right? So when they just pulled that, it's like, okay, I'll take a hit. I'm a business guy. I know how to navigate these waters. We'll take that hit. Cool. But we need to know what we are and are not allowed to do. We invested about $3,500 into our new equipment, right? New computer, monitors, everything, to make sure we try to get you guys the best possible product too. So this isn't bashing YouTube. And listen, I've gotten a lot of comments too of people saying, "Man, I emailed YouTube and told them they're screwing you up." Don't do that. That's not the way to handle it either, right? they're trying to protect themselves. We're trying to put out the best content. The funny ones, though, Jacob's everyone going, just go to Rumble, Clayton. Just go to Rumble. So it may happen eventually. I don't know. But I definitely want to try to make this work with YouTube because you guys, it seems like it's what's most convenient for you guys and gals to watch the show. So sorry to be so long-winded, but again, it's better to address it that way than try to respond to every single email and all that good stuff. But I can't thank y'all enough for the support. And we may go the Patreon route. I just got to be honest, Jacob. It's cringy to me, man. Hey, support us at Patreon. On YouTube, you got your logo. You're getting some. Okay, we know that's a member of the posse. Let's try to highlight that comment. Let's try to make things a lot more interactive. We won't have that information in front of us. We'll be combing through a sheet going, let's see, is that a member of the posse? That's going to be a pain. So anyway, that being said, we're out of here, guys. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We'll continue to churn out the content. Again, Packers Total Access at gmail.com, at Packers_access on Twitter, X, and you can text us 865-658-5824. If for some reason you look up tomorrow and the channel is down and they're not telling me why it's down, then you can get a hold of us there and we'll tell you exactly where to find the content, where to find the channel. Of course, you can always download it in podcast form as well. If you scan this QR code right here in the upper right, that'll send you to Packernet Podcast, where you can find this, the flagship podcast, Packernet Podcast, Packernet After Dark, Jake Shavink's It's Always Draft Season podcast as well. So again, thank you all for the love and the support. Jacob, I'm going to go live again midday. If you're available, you can tell me offline if you're available or not. Maybe Emilio will be woke up by then. I don't know. It just depends on how warm that race car bed is. You know what I'm saying? Tim is out being date mocked tonight. So it is what it is. All right. And we'll be back a little later this afternoon. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.